Hello everybody, today we're going to be looking at the difference between computed properties and watchers in Vue. Before we start, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the setup I'm using, just in case you want to follow along. Firstly, I'm using the Vue CLI and I'm just following this instant prototyping example. I will put a link in the description below for you so you can actually have a read over this page, but it's very straightforward. Essentially, you just create a folder, create a component called app.vue inside that folder, and then you run Vue serve and it will set up your app on localhost 8080 automatically. So it's really straightforward. The other thing I just want to quickly mention is that I'm going to be making calls to this public holidays API, which we will run into cause issues on this if we try to call it directly from the browser. So I'm using a reverse proxy that I've set up at localhost 3000. And if you want to know more about the reverse proxy and why we use it, then I'll put a link below to a video I've done in actually setting this reverse proxy up. But it's basically, instead of making calls directly to the public holidays API, I will be making calls to localhost 3000, which will be acting as our proxy. So don't get confused if you see me making calls to localhost 3000. That is just passing the call straight through to this API. With that all explained, and hopefully you understood that, let's get on and see what the difference between a computed property and a watcher is. Okay, before we start, we just want to bring in Axios so we can make API calls. So if you come over to the terminal and just run npm install Axios, like so, and that should install Axios for us. And if we come back over to our code, we just want to import that here. Import Axios from Axios, like so. And now we should be able to use Axios in the rest of our app. So before we look at building our app, you're probably wondering what actually is the difference between a computed and a watcher. Well, a computed derives data from other data. So a good example of that would be mapping an array, whereas a watcher performs an action when data changes. So a good example of that may well be making an API call. For our example, we're going to be using this public holidays API. And if we have a look at the documentation, you can see we have an available countries endpoint, which gets all the available countries that we can get public holidays for. So we're going to display these in a select list, and then when we select them, we're going to use a watcher to get the public holidays for that country code. We're probably just going to use the year 2020 so we don't overcomplicate anything. So let's go back to our code and start by getting the available countries. So to get the available countries, we're going to want to create a method, and we're just going to call it get countries, like so. And that just needs to make an API call to localhost 3000 available countries. And localhost 3000, if you remember, is just our reverse proxy. That's just sending that straight through to our public holidays API. And then we're just going to want to add a piece of data, and we'll just call that countries. It'll just start off as an empty array, and then we just want to do this dot countries equals response dot data, and then we'll just log any error in the console, like so. Now we just want to call this method when our component is created, so we can use the created hook, and we just put this dot get countries, and we just want to display that in our browser, so we'll display our countries array. And if we come back over to the browser here, and oh, it doesn't like the capital letter in Axios. Let's just go and change that quickly. So come back over to the browser, hopefully it should load this time. And as you can see, we've managed to get all of the available countries from our API. So now let's just display those countries in a select box on our web page. So let's come back over here and we'll get rid of that. We can do select, like so, and then option, and we want v4 equals, and we want country in countries, and this will be country dot, if I come back over here, it looks like value, country dot value, and then value equals, that should be a v bind, country dot key, like so, and then we want to bind this using v model, and we'll just call this selected country, and we'll default it to GB, Great Britain, and then we'll just type selected country in here, and Vue will have a go at us if we do not add a key, so we'll have that as country dot key, like so. And if we come back over here, hopefully this should refresh for us, and there we go, and it's selected United Kingdom for us. It's probably worth just displaying that on the screen so you can see what the V model is doing. Selected country. If I bring that back over here, you should see GB next to it. Let's do there. There's Greece and Morocco. So that's working, and that will be what we will be watching in a minute. But before we add our watcher, we want to actually get the public holidays for the country. So we're going to create another method, and we're going to call it get public holidays. And that is going to be another Axios GET request, so that we call this API, and obviously once again it will be going to our reverse proxy server like so. And if we have a look over at the API here, it goes to public holidays year country code. So let's just come back over to here, and so we've got, sorry, this part, and so we want to call public holidays and year, and we'll just do this year, which is 2020. And then the country code will be whatever one we've selected. So this dot selected country. There we go, like so. Now we just want to create a new array, which we'll call public holidays, just like we did before. And then we just do this dot public holidays. Make sure I remove that typo. Equals response dot data, and then just like before, console.log error, like so. And then what we're going to want to do is we're now going to want to say every time selected country changes, call this get public holidays method, and to do that we're going to add a watcher, and so that goes inside a watch option. And then all we do is we name it selected country. So it's a method called selected country, so it basically matches our selected country data here, and then every time it changes we just put this dot get public holidays, and rather than display the selected country we'll just display the public holidays array like so. And if I come back over to the browser, back over to the Vue CLI app, and if I select Gambia, there we go. As you can see, we've now managed to pull all of the public holidays each time we make a new selection. So that's our watcher firing. So what about our computed then? Well, if we come back over to our code and we add a computed option, we can do something like get every public holiday for December. So if we put December holidays, like so, and then we can return, and computers always return a value, and then we can say this dot public holidays, and then we can use filter, and then we do holiday, and then we just want to check that the holiday is in December. So what we do is we do new date holiday dot date, and this has come directly from the API, and we want to say return it if it equals 11. Sorry, not 12, because dates are 0 based in JavaScript. So January is 0 and December is 11. And it would help if I actually get month. So what we're saying is holiday if new date, if the month for the date of the holiday is 11, or in our case December, then add this to our filtered array. And so all we need to do is come back up to the top, and if we type in December holidays, like so, and then come back over to here, and let's have a look, Greenland, and as you can see, we've got a bunch of holidays, all of which the date is in December. So this is the 24th of the 12th, which is Christmas Eve in Greenland, and then we've got all the way up to New Year's, which is the 31st of the 12th. So we've managed to filter them out. So that's what a Computed's for. Okay, finally, we just want to finish up by cleaning this code up a little bit. So we probably want to put these down as a list somehow. So let's come back over to our template, and then we can let's do an ordered list, and then list item v4, and then we want to say v4 holiday in December holiday. So that's our computed, and we can use it just as if it is an array, like so. And then we can say holiday dot name, so that's the name of the holiday, and let's just give this a key, and so key equals, and we'll do holiday dot date, and if we come back over to the browser, and let's go back over to here, as you can see, Greenland, and we've actually got a list of the holidays. So Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, St. Stephen's Day, and New Year's Eve in Greenland. In the United Kingdom, we've got Christmas Day and St. Stephen's Day, apparently, although we actually call that Boxing Day in the UK. One final thing I want to look at is if I just hit refresh for a second, you'll see that we're not instantly pulling in the December holidays for the United Kingdom when the page loads. And that's because by default, watchers only fire when when our data variable changes. So it doesn't fire when the page loads. So what we can do to bypass this is we can create selected country, and this time we can create it as an actual object, and then it will take a handler method, like so, and this will be called just in exactly the same way as our watcher was before. But when we create it as an object, we can add an immediate option. You can also add a deep option, so that's for a deep watcher, although we're not going into that today. So we can set immediate true, like so. And now if I come back over to here and I hit refresh, you'll see it's immediately called the watcher and pulled the details in for us, and our watcher still works exactly as it did before. So that's everything for today's video. There are a few more things you can do with Computeds and Watchers. We did just touch on that with the immediate option when you use a watcher as an object. And hopefully you've got a little bit of a better understanding of when you would use a computed versus a watcher. So in our case, we've used a watcher to pull information from an API whenever we've changed a value in our select box, and then we've used a computed property to manipulate the array so that we only get the public holidays from December. Well done if you followed along and you've got exactly the same result. I hope you like this video. If you do, then please subscribe to the channel. I do really appreciate it. Please like the video as well. I appreciate that also. And I shall see you next time.